we're joined from Cairo by the political science professor and a specialist in regional and international security, Dr. Ahmed El Shahat. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on Qnews. So firstly, let's start off by asking, how does the response of Hamas to the mediator's proposal influence the negotiation process?
To you and to the viewers, I think that there is a lot of room to openness and to on Hamas' side to react to this agreement. And in the meantime, there are positive indicators as all the parties to the conflict, whether the Palestinian side or the Israeli one, also the mediators, are all seeking to reach a deal. And I think that we are now very close to reach a true deal to be implemented as agreed upon. The second point in this regard, the U.S. has a true desire, especially President Trump, to end the military conflicts that started with India and Pakistan, and then the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, and finally there was the Gaza war, and now we're approaching a solution. And he was trying with the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but there has been more complications in this respect, and that's why he moved to the Gaza war to finalize his goals. And Israel as well has a very exhausted army and a complete military inability to implement the end goal, which is to release the detainees. Also, the Israeli public opinion is now agitated for more than 2 years. They have been encountering fear, and there are military considerations whether from Hezbollah, the Houthis, and this cannot be borne by the Israeli community and society in general. The contradictions and the divisions within the Israeli opposition and the far-right government, and also there are political incentives from Yair Lapid to give Netanyahu political cover and the 23 votes to save his government. All of these things should be taken into consideration in line with the timing of the worsening humanitarian situation for our people in Gaza, imposes on Hamas to have some flexibility.
Well, sir, as you said there, yes, sir, as you said there, that there's a lot of hope that this is going to be a ceasefire for 60 days, and there are positive indicators. Obviously, the humanitarian situation in Gaza is very, very dire right now. Now, if the 60-day ceasefire is implemented, what does this mean for the humanitarian situation in Gaza?
Naturally, there is a main item proposed by Hamas directly, which is to have some sort of flexibility in when it comes to the humanitarian aid access, and for it to be handled by UN organizations represented in the UNRWA and the Red Cross in this regard, and freedom of movement in the Gaza perimeter, as these organizations have a lot of expertise, a long history of expertise in handling aid distribution in conflict areas. And I think Trump approved of this one way or another to put an end to the human suffering. There has been also other points proposed, such as the Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, and it was very notable that we found consensus on Hamas's side to have a gradual withdrawal and not for resuming the negotiations or resuming the war last March. This These are all positive indicators to really have a deal. We still have a third dimension, which is to provide guarantees for a full, sustainable ceasefire after the 60 days.
Yes. Well, sir, as you said there, like one of the sticking points or one of the issues that have faced previous negotiations and previous ceasefires is that it's never actually the end. Now, what strategies are being employed to ensure that the ceasefire is actually sustainable beyond the initial agreement, as per usual, like we've seen in the last 2 years?
I see that there is a demand to have a signed agreement, to be signed by the United States of America, to be the guarantor that Israel will not be back to the fight again. And this is one point. Second, the circumstances that we have mentioned might be a guarantee itself. That these circumstances impose Israel to behave in a certain way and not to go in the direction of violating the agreement again. Third, the exchange of detainees and handing over the dead bodies of the dead detainees. This is a very good system to keep the pressuring cards balanced between the two parties. The most important dilemma here, according to my estimate, is how to envision the strip in the post-war phase. Will Hamas be there, or will it get out of the equation at a political and military level, and the leaders of Hamas will be deported to other states outside of Gaza? These matters need to be discussed further, and I think if the 60-day ceasefire work, the United States will negotiate on these points and will negotiate the disarmament of Hamas and taking the Hamas leaders outside of the political and military scene of the Gaza situation. I think this is the most probable scenario, and we are in the phase before the last. This is an initial phase that would establish and pave the way to the complete end of the war.
Well, sir, now one of the problems or the issues when it comes to ceasefires and trying to end the war with the Israeli side is that they, cause airstrikes and then continue to negotiate. Now, given the recent airstrikes on a UN school, how has this actually affected public sentiment towards the negotiations? Has it soured the situation?
Unfortunately, this has been the Israeli adopted methodology before any deal. They carry out this military escalation to deepen and worsen the humanitarian situation, to have pressuring cards in case they actually reach the negotiation table. This is a known methodology to a new military de facto on the ground, so that when they actually carry out with the withdrawals, the gradual withdrawal will not be that influential, and the redeployment of the Israeli troops will be easy in the case of resuming the war. It's a systematic methodology that we are all aware of. It's, of course, a very bad vision, but it gives, unfortunately, the hope of that we are approaching a ceasefire.
Okay, from Cairo, that was the political science professor and a specialist in regional and international security, Dr. Ahmed El Shahat. Thank you so much for joining us here on Qnews.